You were not born to kneel before chaos. Yet you do, day after day, overwhelmed by emotional storms, paralyzed by indecision, and seduced by illusions. Why? Because your inner frequency, your soul's signal, has been hijacked. But what if there existed an ancient wisdom so precise it could reattune your soul like a master resets a broken compass? In this video, we're not just unveiling that power, we're going to weaponize it. The average man misunderstands frequency as something mystical or poetic. He speaks of vibes and energy, the way a fool speaks of politics, with noise, not knowledge. But to those who understand the mechanics of power, frequency is not a feeling, it is force. It is not something you passively sense, it is something you deploy. The ancients knew this, and Thoth did not teach vibration as a sermon, but as a sovereign's tool. The modern mind, dulled by comfort and polluted by sentiment, has forgotten what the ancients knew, that the universe does not respond to your desires, your cries, or your dreams. It responds to the signal you emit, the coded frequency you broadcast into reality with every thought, every word, every action. You are not a victim of fate, you are a transmitter of it. In the world of Thoth, frequency was the currency of control. He understood that reality itself is not solid, it is malleable, responding with ruthless precision to the quality of your signal. When you think weakly, you emit chaos. When your emotions run wild, you disrupt your own resonance. And when you allow doubt to dwell, you lower your frequency into realms where fear becomes the architect of your life. There is no mystery in why things go wrong for you. They are obeying the vibration you unconsciously authorized. Power, in Thoth's architecture, was nothing more than alignment with high-order frequencies. The low serve the high not because they are inferior, but because they operate in disorder, in static, in internal noise. The high do not dominate by force, they dominate by clarity. Their frequency is not just louder, it is cleaner. It cuts through the fog of confusion, and others bend to it the way water yields to gravity. If your life lacks movement, if your desires stagnate, if you speak and nothing happens, it is because your signal is weak, corrupted, or incoherent. This is not a spiritual problem. This is a tactical one. Thoth's teachings demand a shift from the passive to the purposeful. He did not invite you to become one with the universe. He instructed you to tune yourself so precisely that the universe could not ignore you. Like tuning a blade for war, you must tune your soul for action, and tuning is not comfortable. It is correction. It is confrontation with every part of you that rings off key. Your traumas, your addictions, your self-pity. Each is a note that drags your resonance downward, where you become prey to circumstances rather than commander of them. You are taught to believe frequency is something you feel, something that flows. But this is a lie of the soft-minded. Frequency must be forged. Like iron in the fire, your thoughts must be refined under pressure. You must learn to hold a high frequency, not just when the world is calm, but when it is burning. That is the test of the true initiate. Not if he can meditate in peace, but if he can remain attuned in the midst of betrayal, loss, and rage. And not as a victim who copes, but as a sovereign who chooses. Every word you speak is an incantation, an instruction to the quantum field. Every thought is a tuning fork. Every action is either a declaration of alignment or a betrayal of it. You do not raise your frequency by wanting more. You raise it by becoming disciplined enough to embody the energy that more responds to. In Thoth's doctrine, emotion is not truth unless it is refined. Desire is not direction unless it is calibrated, and intention is powerless unless it is backed by an undistorted frequency. The weak seek healing. They wait for time to soothe their wounds, for mercy to rewrite their pain, for comfort to erase their failures. But Thoth taught no such softness. His doctrine was not of healing, it was of re-engineering. The mind is not a garden to be tended with gentle care. It is an engine to be reconstructed with ruthless precision. Mental alchemy, as taught by Thoth, was never meant to make you feel better. It was meant to make you stronger, sharper, and ultimately untouchable. Pain, regret, desire, these were not enemies to be eliminated but raw materials to be converted. To the average man, suffering is a burden. But to the one who knows how to think, suffering is currency. A volatile, but valuable substance that can be transmuted into unstoppable will. You were taught to treat emotions like sacred truths, to honor them like fragile gods. Thoth rejected that sentiment entirely. Emotions, to him, were merely signals, temporary frequencies, data to be read, not rules to obey. Anger, fear, grief, lust, none of them were problems. They only became problems when left unshaped, undirected, unrefined. The emotional body, left unmastered, corrodes the mind. But when shaped by intelligence and intent, it becomes fuel. Thoth's alchemist does not escape the fire. He steps into it and bends it to his purpose. That is not healing. That is warfare against the disordered self. The process begins not with meditation or hope but with diagnosis. The mind is a system, and every belief is a command script. You are not broken, you are misprogrammed. When you respond to rejection with despair, it is not fate, it is code. When you fall into self-loathing after failure, it is not destiny. It is an algorithm running silently in your subconscious. Thoth's mental alchemy begins with the recognition that your reality is nothing more than the echo of your inner code. To change the outer world, you must first seize and rewire the inner machine. And this is not done by affirmations, nor by shallow positivity. This is done by cutting out diseased thought patterns like a surgeon removes a tumor. It is done by identifying the exact emotional reflex that enslaves you and overriding it. You are angry when criticized. Good. Train yourself to feel focus instead. You are crushed when abandoned. Good. Rewrite that trigger to generate sovereignty. The alchemist's mind does not negotiate with weakness. It repurposes it. To feel pain is not a failure. To remain broken by it is. You are permitted to fall, but you are not permitted to stay fallen. Every wound is an instruction, and Thoth's student learns quickly or dies slowly. Mental alchemy does not stop at the level of emotion. It drills into belief, identity, and will. The question is not, what happened to you? But, what have you done with what happened to you? The world may betray you. That is its nature. But you have no excuse for remaining betrayed. The re-engineered mind turns betrayal into strategy, loss into vision, and shame into silence so sharp it carves the next level of command. Every trauma is a blade, and the alchemist sharpens it until it cuts through illusion and carves out a new frequency. He doesn't cry over the past. He codes it into momentum. This doctrine offers no comfort to the unready. It demands that you look at your pain not as a reason for paralysis, but as proof of potential. You've already survived the blow. Why waste it? You've already walked through hell. Why not map it? The one who masters mental alchemy does not ask life to be kind. He forces life to respond, and it always does, because the world, like metal, reshapes itself under the one who brings fire with precision. That is Thoth's true gift. Not healing as the world understands it, but transformation forged through command. The modern man believes his heart is sacred simply because it feels deeply. He romanticizes his chaos, worships his emotional storms, and imagines that sincerity alone gives value to his inner world. But this is weakness disguised as authenticity. Thoth did not see the heart as a temple of truth, but as a wild beast. Powerful, yes, but dangerous if left untamed. In his system of vibrational wisdom, the heart was never the leader. It was the instrument, the clay, the raw fire waiting to be shaped. And it could only be shaped by one thing: geometry. Sacred geometry was not merely esoteric art or divine symbolism. It was law. It was order. It was the iron skeleton beneath the formless flood of feeling. For the soul to rise, the heart had to submit to structure. In the chaos of raw emotion, man becomes his own worst enemy. He swings from desire to despair, from love to hatred, from hope to collapse. And in that pendulum, he creates nothing. He simply reacts. He is ruled by a chemistry that deceives him, a hormonal symphony that plays him like a puppet. But Thoth understood that emotion is energy in motion, and without a framework, energy burns everything in its path. Geometry is not cold. It is sovereign. It channels the fire. It defines the shape of power. When the heart flows freely into structure, it becomes not an obstacle but an engine. This is why Thoth's temples were designed with precise mathematical ratios, why his symbols encoded divine proportions. He did not build for beauty. He built for resonance. Every angle, every curve, Every spatial alignment was tuned to vibrate with celestial intention. The same principles apply to the architecture of the self. Your emotional world must be redesigned, not to suppress feeling, but to orient it. Joy must have symmetry. Anger must have thresholds. Love must be aligned with purpose. The man who feels everything without form is a servant to his own heartbeat. The man who architects his emotion according to geometric order becomes a master not just of self, but of reality. Geometry offers the soul something emotion cannot: stability. A triangle does not collapse under pressure. A circle does not end. A golden ratio does not fracture in crisis. These forms are eternal because they reflect the very language of the universe. Frequency organized into pattern. Vibration crystallized into shape. To apply geometry to the heart is to bring timelessness into the realm of fleeting sensation. It is to elevate emotion from temporary reaction to eternal principle. In a world where sentiment rules, this teaching is dangerous. It tells you not to trust every emotion, not to validate every tear, not to follow every impulse. It tells you that unless your feelings can be measured against the harmonics of universal order, they are not to be trusted. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is liberation from the tyranny of the untamed inner world. When the heart obeys geometry, its frequencies sharpen. You no longer express emotions to release pressure. You express them with precision to produce change. This is the difference between the artist and the architect, between the dreamer and the designer, between the victim and the commander. Thoth's geometry is not abstract. It is the blueprint of inner sovereignty. He understood that the soul vibrates highest not in chaos, but in composition, that every emotional surge, if routed through divine proportion, becomes an instrument of will. The heart no longer begs to be understood. It becomes the language of dominion, expressed through shape, rhythm, and control. In this system, your highs do not sabotage your strategy. Your lows do not drown your logic. Everything finds its place within the sacred equation. Emotion becomes not something you confess, but something you direct. And as it flows along these internal structures, your soul begins to sing in harmony with creation. Not as a passenger, but as a designer of its own architecture. In the age of noise, silence is mistaken for absence. The average mind, addicted to reaction and comforted by sound, believes that power is in the declaration, the outburst, the performance. But Thoth's wisdom tells a different tale. In his understanding of vibrational law, silence is not the lack of sound. It is the presence of focused frequency. It is vibration so refined, so undisturbed, that it no longer needs a voice to bend reality. The fool speaks to be heard. The sovereign remains silent to resonate. Silence, in its purest form, is not void. It is precision. It is a weapon the undisciplined will never understand, and therefore can never defend against. Thoth knew that the universe speaks in vibration, and vibration does not require language. It responds to alignment, not explanation. The more noise you generate, internally and externally, the more your energy scatters across empty space. But when you withdraw, when you become still, when you pull your presence inward without apology or announcement, you condense your frequency into something lethal. It sharpens. It hums. It becomes unignorable. Not because it is loud, but because it is true. Silence forces the world to confront the signal underneath your words, and that signal either commands or collapses. Consider the structure of sacred temples, spacious, symmetrical, still. They are not filled with chaos. They are not overflowing with chatter. They reverberate with intentional silence, with echoes that know when not to speak. Within those chambers, energy builds, thought becomes dense, spirit crystallizes. This is not spiritual fluff. It is vibrational strategy. Silence allows resonance to magnify. It creates a void that demands response. In your own being, silence is the space in which your power gathers and prepares. It is not retreat. It is calibration. The weak rush to explain themselves. They pour out words as if their value depends on visibility. But Thoth taught that the more sacred a force becomes, the more it retreats into secrecy. What is most powerful hides in plain sight, or not at all. The sacred is not accessible. It is earned, and so must be your silence. It cannot be passive. It must be deliberate. It must be backed by intensity. When you are silent, your mind must be active, calculating, focused. You are not escaping, you are wielding. The internal silence must be filled not with void, but with will, with vision, with command that does not beg to be heard, but simply waits to be obeyed. This kind of silence destabilizes the weak. They will provoke you, mock you, bait you, because they fear the stillness that does not mirror their noise. But that fear is your advantage. To remain unmoved is to dominate. When you do not react, when you do not explain, when you do not fill the air with desperation, you force others to adjust themselves to your frequency. They begin to orbit you, unsure of your next move, unsure of your internal world, unnerved by your lack of performance. This is psychological warfare executed with grace. You have not attacked, but they have already begun to retreat. Silence also allows access to higher signals. When you cease internal dialogue, when you clear the static of need, fear, and performance, you begin to hear what others cannot. You pick up subtle frequency, intuition strengthens, strategy emerges. You do not guess, you know. Not because someone told you, but because in stillness, the codes of reality reveal themselves. This is the realm of Thoth, not the chaotic seeker, but the silent strategist who deciphers universal law not with noise, but with presence. To weaponize silence, you must first master your reaction. You must become immune to emotional bait, immune to provocation, immune to the compulsion to be understood. The more they demand your voice, the more power you gather by withholding it. The more they expect your energy, the more you win by conserving it. True vibrational control is not in how loudly you assert your identity. It is in how deeply your presence reshapes the environment without a single word. Silence, when charged with intention, becomes command. When held with discipline, it becomes law. To the untrained mind, ritual is seen as superstition, a repetition of symbolic gestures, void of purpose, and only meant to soothe the weak. But to those initiated into the vibrational doctrines of Thoth, ritual is not about belief. It is about geometry enacted through time. It is the codified movement of energy through form, space, and rhythm. It is how the unseen is commanded to become real. Ritual is not religion. It is architecture. And like all true architecture, it is built not for comfort, but for control. For those who understand this law, ritual is not optional. It is required. Without it, the soul collapses into chaos, the will dissolves into distraction, and the mind becomes an unguarded empire, easily invaded by lesser frequencies. In a world that worships spontaneity and impulsiveness, the idea of structured repetition seems lifeless. But Thoth knew that freedom without form is decay. What you do consistently, at the same hour, with the same posture, with the same energy, builds a signal so precise that the universe must obey. Ritual is the means by which the spiritual becomes mechanical, not robotic, but engineered. In ritual, you are not asking, you are wiring reality. You are programming your frequency into the structure of time, sending a coded vibration into the cosmic web, and receiving its mirrored consequence. The undisciplined speak of manifestation as if it were luck or magic. The sovereign builds it like an architect designs a fortress, brick by ritual brick. Ritual is the hammer that forges the self. Through it, you become a creature of pattern, and in pattern, you become a transmitter of unwavering force. The repetition is not weakness, it is tuning. Each act, no matter how small, lighting the flame, reciting the word, assuming the posture, is a key that locks you into alignment with a higher harmonic. This is not about pretending to be holy. This is about becoming dangerously precise. The alchemist's altar is not sentimental. It is tactical, and so too must be your day, your breath, your movements. If your life lacks ritual, it lacks rhythm. If it lacks rhythm, it lacks frequency. And if your frequency is chaotic, so is your fate. Most men lose their power not because they lack desire, but because they lack ritual. Their mornings are formless. Their intentions float. Their days are dictated by reaction, not design. They drift, hoping to arrive at power, unaware that power is the reward of repetition. The same words, the same flame, the same silence, not because the universe needs it, but because you do. The ritual does not convince reality. It rebuilds you into someone that reality must respect. Ritual is not about faith. It is about formation. In each repeated gesture, you are sculpting the soul into an instrument that emits coherence, direction, and signal clarity. Thoth taught that ritual reattunes the body to celestial law. When your movements mirror the patterns of the heavens, you no longer chase fate. It finds you. When you rise at the same hour each day, not out of obligation but out of dominion, you align your biology with the mechanics of cosmic order. When you recite the same phrase with exact tone and breath, you're not speaking to yourself. You are resonating with forces far beyond comprehension. Your words become frequency. Your breath becomes law. Your actions become architecture. There is no sovereignty without ritual. There is no control without structure. Every empire, every temple, every army was built on repeated action. Ritual is how you engrave your will into time. It is how you condition your nervous system to stop serving emotion and start executing command. In the language of Thoth, ritual was never decorative. It was dangerous. It was the moment the soul stopped asking and started issuing decrees. When ritual is integrated, the mind sharpens, the heart stabilizes, the body aligns, and the field around you begins to bend in response. Not because of magic, because of mechanism. Because you are no longer random, you are rhythmic. You are no longer reactive, you are calibrated. You no longer echo the world, you reconstruct it in the image of your disciplined vibration. In a world drunk on distraction and enslaved by emotion, the vibrational wisdom of Thoth stands like an immovable monolith, cold, precise, and terrifying to those who worship comfort. This doctrine does not promise relief. It promises realignment. Not through softness, but through sovereignty. It does not seek to heal your wounds with soothing words. It demands you re-engineer your entire operating system. You are not here to cope. You are here to command. And that command begins with silence, sharpens through ritual, calibrates through structure, and culminates in the complete overhaul of your mental and emotional circuitry. Thoth's path is not the path of the seeker. It is the path of the constructor. You are not discovering yourself, you are building yourself according to divine proportions. Every thought must be shaped. Every emotion must be bent. Every habit must be ritualized. Your heart is no longer allowed to rule. It must be governed. Your mind is no longer permitted to wander. It must become an instrument of architecture. This is the law of higher sovereignty, to emit a frequency so refined, so deliberate, that the universe itself must reorganize in obedience to your vibration. You were not born to float in chaos. You were not designed for confusion. You are a fragment of cosmic law, capable of crystallizing entire realities through vibration disciplined into form. But only if you are ruthless enough to silence the noise. Only if you are exact enough to bind your emotion to geometry. Only if you are disciplined enough to turn ritual into resonance and silence into dominion. For in the end, power does not scream. It does not explain. It does not wait. It simply vibrates, and the world adjusts.